Hi everyone and welcome. We are in my wormery and it's feeding time. Usually we don't start the video, with me already in the thick of feeding, but I was having a little bit of issues with the camera. It kept reporting that there was no SD card, and I accidentally hit the reformat button and all the stuff that I shot a few moments ago is gone, so I'm now starting again. But we missed the little beginning portion of this. But this is the first bin that I was about to feed, or not feed. If you watched the last video, you'll remember that I made some comments suggesting that if we got into this bin today, a week later, and found a lot of food remaining, then we might decide to forego feeding this bin. Only because there was a huge abundance of food observed in here last time, and I'm almost inclined to stick with that concept, but that would sort of break my tradition of always maintaining a healthy supply of food for these little guys. So, you know what? I've got food on the ready, and even though there's a whole bunch of existing food in here from the previous go-arounds, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit to keep things moving. And on top of that, I guess the other piece of rationale here is that a lot of this food is very hard, stuff that was removed from other bins and stuff that breaks down rather slowly, so I don't know how readily available all of this food is, even though it's fairly abundant. So I do want to include some food today, some stuff that's not as hard and as slow composting as what's in here already. So here's all the stuff that we pulled out, but let's go ahead and plop it back in and we'll quickly account for what's in here. Large amount of it is mango seeds. Some of them, like this one, still so hard that it's not yet been infiltrated as far as I can tell, but I just managed to crack it open, so that might help speed things along at this point to give the little guys access to the insides. Sticks and stems, all these things added last time. Here's the half mango seeds that we've got laying around, another full mango seed. Let me see if I can crack this one open. This one feels like it might be a little bit tougher, a little bit harder. This one's not giving in. Now, stuff like this banana should go pretty quick. So I'm a little bit surprised that it's not yet gone after a week's time. Half mango seeds, half mango seeds, half mango seeds. And some corn. Corn always seems to take a long time in my bins as well for some reason. So that accounts for all the previously added stuff that's been pushed back down into the bottom. Just wanted to get a sense of how much of it there was. So let me just grab a handful of stuff from the food supply. It's potato peels. This is cabbage. Some more cabbage. Here's a piece of melon. And some olives that I picked off of a frozen pizza pie since I don't like the olives. I think that'll do. So we'll cover this one back up now. Push up what's happening here too. Yeah. Seems like they're all over the place. Even though the feeding zone is down the middle, there are an abundance of worms out here along the edge. So things look pretty good, but what I'm going to do is grab something that I noticed was missing before for some reason, was my feeding zone marker. There was a little tiny piece of coffee filter about this big and all the rest of it was gone. So I don't know if they've been gobbling on it, but I'm going to get a fresh one. There we go. Okay. Let's get the other bin that's the same age as this one from May 3rd as well. Okay, so this is the second bin that was launched on the same day on May 3rd. Now here, you can get a little bit better sense of how this coffee filter is coming along. This one's got a little bit of deterioration on it as well, but didn't get gobbled up like the other one. So here we've got a few sprouts popping up. We're going to add those back in as food. But I believe we kind of had a similar determination when we looked at this bin last week as well, was that it had a plenitude of food and that foregoing today's feeding might be an option. But like we already said, we're gonna feed anyway, even if it's a little bit, just so we can sort of keep the supply backfilled. Here's the cork that we've been tracking the progress of, something that I've just not really seen deteriorate much at all. Although it does seem like a couple worms are kind of latched onto it and playing around with it. So it seems to interest them a little bit. Oh, look at that. This was a banana that still had some fresh banana inside of it, not just the peel. So I think that's part of why they're really going bananas over here. Yeah. Here's the corn. The corn was also attracting quite a crowd last time we stumbled on it. Here's some more old food that was added from having been removed from the older bins the other day. These mango pits. The whole one that we saw a moment ago and another half of one. And let's see what else we've got happening down here. More sticks. Another piece of the banana peel. And I'm just going to push things up a little bit here. Another hunk of corn. Wow. This bin definitely has a good sized population. I mean, look at all of these worms. This is right below where that piece of banana was and where the corn cob was. With the exception of a couple chunks of food in between, there's just a mound of worms hanging out here. Now this is more like what I was expecting to see. I believe this was a piece of watermelon rind. And there was still, like I believe last time, there was still some pink or red meat of the watermelon remaining, but now it's starting to finally look like it's been eaten partially. So, just gonna put some stuff off to the side that we can cover up with afterwards. Just spread these little guys around a little bit. Pretty nice, active, large population in here. So we're going to move all this food stuff back down into the hole, kind of spread it out a bit, put the cork back in the middle. Yeah, this was a piece of material that we had originally thought might have been plastic, but you can see that it's starting to work its way down, being broken down into smaller chunks and getting softer and more pliable and breaking actually, which it wouldn't do the first time I encountered it. Let's see. Throw another banana peel in here. They seem to like that. Some of these sprouts that we pulled out of different places, just throw them in here as food. Hopefully they don't start growing again. Just crush them up a bit, make sure they stay uprooted. A little bit more cabbage. Another piece of melon for them. And we'll leave the rest of the stuff for the older bins. Alrighty. Pretty good. Let's cover up and move on to the two oldest bins. Okay, so now this one, if I'm not mistaken, this bin is somewhere in the 75-day-old range or something of that sort. I don't recall, but the point was that this bin, even though it's not my oldest, it's about a month behind my oldest. It just seems like it's burning through its food even more quickly than my oldest bin. This is 3 feedings into a horizontal migration on this side. Next feeding is going to switch the feeding over to this side to get the horizontal migration going in the opposite direction now. But before we do that, I'm just curious to see how things are progressing over on this side where the last feeding occurred. Here I am encountering a few things such as Another hunk of watermelon, which is still got a little bit of the outer rind on it, and it's pretty hard. So maybe that's the reason they're just having a hard time working their way through it. Although it's still got a fair amount of moisture and it's juicy, so I assume it'll get worked down in time. But since it's pretty large, I'm going to go ahead and add it back to my food supply, and it's going to go over onto the new feeding zone back over here. So I'd like for this old feeding zone to be kind of winding down. Small scraps of food remaining are okay, so that they can be depleted in a short while. But anything larger I'm going to pull out and move it over into the new feeding zone on the other edge. Well, here's a banana peel from last time. It didn't really get worked as far as we had hoped, so I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to pull it out, and we're going to include it in the new feeding zone on the other edge. Here, this is just a paper thin piece of cantaloupe rind. Banana peel, but it's the stem part of it. Here's the little handle, if you want to call it the handle or stem. So it looks pretty good. So like I said, this is 3 feedings now that have occurred over on this edge, but now we're going to set up the other edge as the new feeding zone. And this is going to be horizontal migration number 2 for this bin. A few weeks ago it was converted over to horizontal migration over here, and now we're going to switch it back. We're going to make the new horizontal migration on this edge over here. Before I put in the food, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit of leaves, dried leaves for bedding underneath the food. And now we can take these incomplete pieces of food, the ones that we pulled out of the feeding zone, the old feeding zone, and move them over into here. This is actually just came out of the food supply, so that's a fresh piece of food. A couple handfuls here. More potato peels, some cucumbers, some lettuce. We already have 1 banana peel in there. We'll add a second because I've still got 2 more for the other bin that we're going to give the same treatment to. We're going to do a switchback on that one as well. Everything that I put in here, I'm hoping, is going to be stuff that gets completely chewed up and eaten, so that this bin can start making its way to the finish line and be harvested at some point soon. Okay, 1 last handful of little bits, and I think that leaves an equal amount for the last bin that we're going to do, the 100-day-old bin that we're going to switch back the horizontal migration on. Okay, so let's put the marker back on and cover up and onto the last bin. Okay, so now this last bin here, this is the one that's now at the 100-day-old age, and here too, this food marker is really getting gobbled up. So I think it's big enough, though. I think it's big enough that we'll be able to just stick with it for a little while longer. Maybe it'll survive to the end. So we'll just set it aside. We'll do the same thing as we did on the last bin that we just checked in on. We're going to set the new feeding zone up over on the opposite side. But before we do, we're going to take a quick inspection of the way things are progressing from the last time we fed a week ago. And if anything is really large in here still, we're not going to leave it. We're going to pull it out, and we're going to include it in the new feeding zone on the opposite edge. So you can see the worms are really enjoying this piece of banana peel. Just going to pull it out temporarily, and we're going to include that in the new feeding zone once we set it up on the opposite edge. Things are coming along pretty good down in here. I thought I was going to find some larger chunks of cardboard, but maybe they've been worked down to the point where they're not big enough to worry about. I'm not even sure if that's cardboard. Maybe it's melon peel? It's hard to say. It's so thin, very thin. Let's start prepping the new feeding zone on the opposite side. Let's start shoving things over. It's a nice earthy smell in here. Bedding. A little bit of crushed leaves. We could take the remainder of the food that we have in here and drop it all in. Cover up the feeding zone loosely. Here too we've got horizontal migration number 2 initiated, switched back onto the opposite edge. Alright everyone, that's it for today. I'm going to clean up here, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. I always appreciate that, and consider subscribing to my channel. Alright everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye. What, you're still here? I thought I said goodbye. I figured you would have shut off by now. Well, guess what? A little bonus footage. This is what was missed in the beginning, which got cut off, and something that we've not even looked at yet together, which is it's a new bin that I've got, which is launched off with 500 cocoons of European nightcrawlers. So a couple things that are new for me here is the fact that I've never started with cocoons or never had any access to cocoons before. So these are compliments of Emily, the crazy worm lady. Thank you, Emily. And this should turn out to be a fairly abundant number of worms once they all hatch, you know, with each cocoon being good for, you know, at least a couple worms each. So I did poke around in here earlier, didn't see any worms per se, although I'm almost certain that there's worms in here. We'll take those couple of corn cobs, that sort of leftover food, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place them down into this bin. I'm almost certain that there's worms cruising around in here, but maybe they're very small and I just don't see them because of that. Maybe they're hiding. Okay, so I create a little bit of a crevice, sort of a gully down in there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put these couple of corn cobs down in there for them. And then I'm going to try to cover up as best I can, just to make sure that the food stuff is down under the surface, just to make sure it doesn't start to attract any sort of pests. And then this way, once the worms start to emerge, they'll have a little something to chew on other than cardboard and leaves. So we'll be keeping an eye on this bin to see how things progress. So far I don't see much happening. Oh, I lied. Is that a worm? Maybe I'm just imagining. Is it moving? It is. There we go. Okay. It's a European nightcrawler, according to what Emily tells me. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch more of them. I'm just probably not seeing them. They're hiding. So, alright everyone, that's it for today. Thanks for sticking on a little bit longer past my customary goodbye and wave and thumbs up, but I'll ask for it again. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. I always appreciate that, and we'll see you next time. Bye.